Welcome to PSA. My name is Felix if you're new around here, and if you're back, thank you. My wife shared an amazing message last week about how difficult it is at times to lean into sharing your faith. Make sure you check that out. So her message made me think about a few things this week when our mail-in ballots came in, and I feel like I need to share it with you guys. Did you know that less than half the people who identify as evangelicals vote? Now, if you're a non-believer, don't tune out right now because you don't need to believe in God to benefit from his virtues. Contrary to what you might think, God has not abandoned the United States, but the United States may be abandoning God. I believe that possibly the same way God used COVID to prune the church and his people, he may be using this election to prune the church and his believers even further. Pruning may be a foreign topic for some of you without the green thumb. And I know some of you that follow me have a green thumb for a different reason. Nonetheless, the process is the same. The idea is to cut off the parts that are dying so whatever is still alive can grow and get stronger. If the Christians are supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus here on the earth, we can't sit by quietly and let communist and Marxist views be voted into the government while God seems to be voted out. If we sit by quietly, are we really looking like Christ? We need to vote with a biblical worldview of morality, and our problems will begin to be solved. So, is the church going to step up these next 3 weeks or what? I know this isn't the easiest topic to talk about, but you can't be preaching about communication and not be available when it's time to communicate a tough word. You can't be challenging people to be courageous while you are on the stage and you are actually a coward off of it. You are not Braveheart if you are not sharing his heart for his people bravely. Leaders usually overshare from their handicap. Want to know what somebody is dealing with? Just listen to what they're telling you to do. But the leader you need to follow is the one whose actions lead before his words are heard. As a human, not a Democrat or Republican, or a liberal or an independent, abortion is a big topic. I feel it's the biggest because it is the war that never ends, and we lose an average of 2,000 lives a day, and half of them are black babies. There's so much talk about war and racism, but what war wouldn't be a top priority if we knew 2,000 plus people were dying a day? What kind of genocide are we voting for when a specific race of people are being targeted at an average of 1,000 a day? The non-negotiable policy for a believer is abortion, which is now presented under the guise of health care when really what it is murder. If you violently cause a woman to miscarriage, you can be charged with manslaughter or murder. If a pregnant woman is killed, you are charged with double homicide or worse if there were twins in there. Anyone who argues when a child becomes alive, just know in the first trimester, the remains of an abortion are sold for the cells and the body parts to humans who were not aborted. And my Bible says in the book of Jeremiah that before he formed you in the womb, he had plans to prosper you and to make you a prophet to the nations. So you see, the church has a spiritual responsibility to speak to the political issues, even if the church leader or the church becomes unpopular, even before we hit the womb. No one is exempt. Jesus came and said to John in the scriptures, in John 18, if the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, and that is why the world hates you. Remember what I told you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. If they obeyed my teaching, they will obey yours also. They will treat you this way because of my name, for they do not know the one who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not be guilty of sin, but now they have no excuse for their sin. Whoever hates me hates my Father as well. These verses are captioned, "The world hates the disciples." Disciples mean students, and students of God's words. They want us dumb to his word, and they want us ready to follow the world. There is so much in these verses, but please take these two things away from it. Better to be hated for doing God's work than loved for serving the world's impulses. If you put your political worldview before your biblical worldview, you have made the government your God. Another hot topic has been the border. And you may think, Felix, you're Cuban. You're definitely going to rep for the immigrants. Yes, I will. My parents were legal immigrants because they had so much love and admiration for this country that they did not want to dishonor it. Now, I'm not going to make believe we're holier than thou. I will admit that my dad hustled a few of our family members into this country illegally. I'm free to say that now thanks to the statutes of limitations and because my father passed away, and also because they are legal now and I don't lie. But it was way harder then, and they came to make a positive contribution to society. Otherwise, my dad may have deported them himself. They had no criminal records. They had no mischievous intent. They just had a strong faith and a hope to also be able to live out this American dream. My father moved them into our home, then got them their own apartments. He had jobs waiting for them, and as fast as possible, he helped them become citizens and not just come here to be a burden to society. In Matthew 25, starting in verse 34, Jesus uses this image of a shepherd separating the sheep from the goats to explain how people will be judged. The sheep represent the people who have helped others, while the goats represent those who have acted selfishly or unkindly. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of this world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did I see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For when I was hungry, you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They will also answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick, or in prison, and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. What a catch-22. You see, we're in a tough spot, not just politically, but spiritually. We need to know that we serve a God of order and not chaos. What we are seeing now is nuts. It's millions of people flooding through our borders, hundreds of thousands with suspect records, tens of thousands who are registered murderers and sex offenders. The borders cannot be open. Hell has open borders, and all are welcomed. Heaven has walls, a gate, a road, and you need to know the guy at the door before you arrive. His name is Jesus. And even Jesus, God in the flesh, would refer to God's words and God's order when he was in doubt. So we need to serve our brothers and sisters with order. Because if we just keep letting anyone into this country to serve them, we are simultaneously doing our other brothers and sisters a disservice, or maybe even worse. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to have any bodies on my jacket when I go to see Jesus. This week I shared on Instagram a 10-point checklist on how I would be voting. I only touched on 2 of those topics today, so maybe I'll do a second part of this if you guys have found some value in it. The points were: 1, to follow God and not government. 2, that peace is priority. 3, America's needs come first. 4, abortion is not health care, it's murder. 5, America's war efforts should be for our soil, not for foreign land or profit. 6, politics should not be a lifelong career choice. It should be an act of public service for a term. 7, media is not reality, actions are. 8, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. 9, vote virtues over values. Just because you're offended doesn't mean you are right. 10, you are not Democrat or Republican, libertarian. You are a human child of God. In closing, we cannot support the party of war over peace, death over life, illegals over citizens, and worldly values over God's virtues. All throughout the scriptures, if you dig into them, you will find a framework as to how we should cast our vote and how to lead in every space that we enter in His name. This is not optional for the Christian, especially because the non-believer most likely is not reading the scriptures, but they are looking at how you are living your life. Thousands of years ago, God's people were saved by Moses from captivity. Then they were led to the promised land by Joshua and Caleb. Israel had to vote to choose to follow Joshua and believe what he was told by God. The same promises go for us too as His people, but we need to step in His name, and what He has for us will be given to us. And even if you're not a believer, you can benefit from these promises too, because Israel was a rowdy bunch and often disbelieving as well, but they followed a leader who led them in God's name, and they made it to the promised land because the faith of a few bold and courageous men. We can't say God is being quiet when we have had our Bibles closed and we haven't moved on the last thing He told us. The scary thing is, the last thing He may have told us might actually be in the scriptures, and because we haven't checked that off, we may be wondering why our prayers are not being answered. For some of you, this might be a reminder to get back into the Word. For others, it might be a sign to start reading and listening to what the words are saying back to you in your quiet time. I know the more we adhere to His words, the more He will speak to us, and the better our communities will become. And I'll go as far as to say our government and even our world as well. And until next week, let's love more, and I'll see you at the next PSA. Politics and religion. I know these are tough topics, but if the word spoke to you, please share it with the first person that comes to mind. Check out some of these other messages, and we only have 3 weeks, so we really have to step up, all of us, and do our part. Take care.